Okay, we are live and it's on my page, not the church page. It's Thank you for your patience. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but I believe we are ready to go.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. On behalf of Sligo Seventh-day Adventist Church, I'm Ron DeClerc, and we're welcoming you to Parenting Through COVID-19. We appreciate you joining us. I'm a lay leader for our Family Ministries section, and my co-host is Pastor Hazel Mariquin, pastor for Children and Family Ministries here at Sligo. We'll be joined today by a special couple to our church, and particularly our adventure parents. We know them very well as a result of having watched their Help I'm a Parent Christian Parenting in the Real World series for first birth to age 7, and then we almost got through ages 8 to 12 until COVID hit. We had 2 more modules to go. We look forward to finishing those up virtually very soon. However, I'd like to give the honor of introducing that couple to Pastor Hazel. Pastor.
Thank you, Ron. And Ron is the director of our family ministry, for those of you that are not familiar with him. And so today we're super excited to have the Consuegras with us, Claudio and Pamela. They are the ministerial directors, the family ministry directors for the North American division, for those of you that are not familiar with them. And we're very excited that today they are willing to bring their expertise to us. And so welcome, Doctors Consuegras. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting us. It's always good to be with the Sligo Church family. Both of us are graduates of Columbia Union College, and of course went to Sligo every single week, at least for chapel, not for church because we had a membership in one of the other churches in the area, but for chapel every week for 4 years. We enjoyed visiting Sligo Church, and many times the wonderful concerts that you have held and programs. So it's always good to be with the Sligo Church family. It's good to see those of you who are brave enough to have your camera on. Those of you who don't have your camera on, we just simply assume that you're wearing your pajamas and don't want to be seen. So that's okay if that's the case. But anyways, we're just delighted to be able to spend this time with you.
So we want to thank you so much for the opportunity this Sabbath afternoon to talk to you about an important topic, and that is parenting through COVID. You know, we really are in an extraordinary time. It's a time that we could not plan for, we could not be educated for. That was just thrust upon us because of the situation, not only in our country, but actually the situation around the world. And it has indeed created some very unique challenges, especially in the area of parenting. And we're going to talk about those this afternoon.
I think a lot of parents are going crazy with the situation, not only because of their job, not only because they themselves have to stay home, but because they have become the teachers of their own kids. And some of those parents are saying, I now understand that the problem with my kids was not their teacher, it was our kids. And we have seen so many memes on Facebook and other places making fun of the parents pulling their hair off or out of their heads because of what the kids are driving them crazy at home. So anyways, we want to share with you just some thoughts for you to consider. And by the way, there will be some time for questions at the end. Our presentation will be actually fairly short, just with a few thoughts, but then you have the opportunity to ask questions, and Ron and Pastor Hazel can give you instructions on that.
Right. So if you're watching this on Facebook Live, just write your questions in the chat below this post, and we have some folks who are monitoring that. And at the end, like Claudia said, we'll take some questions. So we're going to talk about some very practical tips to give you parents as you work your way parenting through COVID.
The first one is one that we have been hearing from the very beginning. It's just that the terminology has, I think, caused some difficulty, and that is to maintain social distance. Well, what we prefer to say is maintain physical distance,
Right.
but actually we encourage social closeness. When we say that you need to maintain social distance, it almost seems like we decided to separate socially from everybody. And after a while, we're finding out, hey, we are social people. Now we don't have anyone around us. So one of the things that we want to encourage you to do is to change the terminology, to be safe, to use a physical distance, but see how you can encourage social closeness.
In fact, that term social distancing has created a special anxiety for our teenagers as they hear us say that over and over again, social distancing. So let today be the last day that you use that term, and let's say physical distancing. And instead, let's try to think of ways that we can actually encourage our children, and especially our teenagers, to maintain that connectedness. That connectedness with their peer group is so important to our teenagers, and also maintain that connectedness, especially to their faith community. And let's stop using that term incorrectly.
In fact, one of the things that we have noticed is that desire to be together with other people, with their peers to begin with. One of the things that we said earlier in the pandemic in one of the presentation is that our kids are going through a period of grief because they have lost. They have lost the end of the school year. Many of them suddenly, they went to school one day, the next day they were not there in school and haven't seen their friends physically since then, sometimes in March or so. They lost touch with their teachers. Some of them develop a good, warm relationship with a special teacher, math, geography, whatever it may be. And suddenly that was that. Yes, they saw them on the screen, but that, again, social closeness was lost. They have lost touch with their loved ones, grandma and grandpa. Haven't been able to see them in all these months because obviously they don't want to place them in a dangerous situation where they could be contaminated inadvertently. So think about what your kids are going through in terms of grief. They are grieving all their losses. Some of them couldn't graduate or at least go to their graduation. When I think about it, school has already started in some places, and it's almost like, well, where did summer go? We lost the summer.
We lost spring, in fact.
We lost spring and summer. Yeah,
And you know what else we lost, honey? One of my favorite things about living in this area is the cherry blossoms.
Yes, we couldn't
I
see it.
lost my opportunity to visit the cherry blossoms this year.
So imagine we as adults feel it, your kids also feel it. But at the same time, some of your children, especially teenagers, are probably thinking, but I'm young, I'm strong, I'm healthy. Why do I have to worry about that? I should be able to go play basketball with my friends. Well, while maybe they indeed enjoy better health, and it is indeed very possible that they can fight this virus if they are contaminated better than others, what they need to be reminded of is that they could also be carriers, and those who are more vulnerable could be the ones affected. So while they may be okay, somebody else may not. So this is one of those times when you can teach them to not be selfish, but rather to be selfless. The reason we wear the mask, the reason we maintain that physical distance, the reason we don't go visit some people as much as we would love to visit them, it's not for us only, but really for others. I want to go to the nursing home to visit grandma, or I want to go to grandpa's house to see them. Of course we do, and enjoy the delicious meal that grandma cooks, but it's not good for them. So it's better to just maintain that physical distance just long enough for this thing to be over, then we can be reunited.
And it's so tempting, parents, to tell our kids to use phrases like, because I said so, because the governor said so, because the school board said you can't go to school. It's so easy to use cliches and phrases like that, but that doesn't help our children understand. And we need to give them age-appropriate conversations. Now that's a key, parents, age-appropriate. As old as they are, explain it in a way that their little minds or older minds can comprehend. And don't say, because I said so, because you can't, because you have to wear the mask. But let's take the opportunities to explain it to them in a way that perhaps makes sense to them, in a way that they can understand, because actually kids really are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. The problem is that we don't want to take the time. We don't want to invest the time and energy to sit down and listen to them, listen to their frustrations, listen, and then explain to them in ways that you may be surprised that they'll understand.
And that's very important, what you just said. We need to take their side, wear their shoes, so to speak, and understand their frustration, their grief, their pain, because they are going through an experience that, well, none of us have. They haven't either. So let's try to understand what they're going through, instead of just simply saying, I'm doing okay, you should be doing okay as well.
So that was actually point number 2. Point number 1 was to emphasize physical distance, but not social distance.
Right.
Keep that social connectedness. And point number 2 is to understand and acknowledge their frustration and the losses that they have experienced.
Now, number 3, and of course, we just mentioned that school is already starting in some places. Some kids, for instance, I heard Andrews University has already started classes, or at least the freshmen had to report early. Some of the elementary schools and secondary schools are already beginning as well, but they're starting differently than ever before. Some of them are starting without going to a location. Our daughter teaches at St. Charles High School there in Charles County, Waldorf, Maryland. And she has learned now that they are starting everything virtual. So this week, the teachers will be reporting for school. Next week, the kids will begin, or in a couple of weeks, the kids will begin, but everything will be virtual. So it's, all along, we have been telling parents to limit the time that your kids spend in technology. And now we're saying, let them spend time in technology because they have to. There's no choice about that. Well, there is a choice. You have to consider the amount of time that they spend in front of the computer screen or the cell phone, the tablet, because of school, but then limit the time with technology after that. The same goes for you, actually, as parents. Many of you are having to still work remotely, virtually. You have to work from your office, from your home, instead of going to the office. You too need to get to the point where you put a stop to the technology and get away from it to enjoy more of the normal human interaction. So put a limit to the technology.
Now, the best way to do that, parents, is to develop a schedule for your home. You know, once again, you're dealing with perhaps you have to work from home, and maybe you have 2 or 3 kids all trying to do remote learning on their own devices, and house is just bedlam. So it is so important to develop a schedule for your home. And the first thing you put in that schedule is the non-negotiables. You know, some districts have set times where the children are required to log in. That is perhaps one of your non-negotiables. So you're gonna plug in those times in your schedule of which you may have no control over. Put those in first. But then don't be so strict with it. We need to look at that schedule and say, okay, I need free time. And you know what, moms and dads, the truth is we need free time ourselves, but our kids need it too. Our kids need a block of time when they can do what they want to do. Maybe they want to go outside. Maybe they want to read in a book. Some children just want to sit in their room alone, just have some alone time. So intentionally building some of those things into the schedule, the non-negotiables first, but then make sure you allow free time for every member of your household. Every member of the family deserves a little bit of me time. And then there are going to be other things that you're going to put in your family schedule. And we're going to talk a little bit about those later on. And there are going to be some other key points. So listen out for those.
And one of the things we want to emphasize is that beautiful word, flexibility. We can't be so strict, so adamant that things have to be done this way or else, that it only builds that tension in your home. So again, as Pam said, you have the non-negotiables of the school work, school time. What if they want to spend some time with their friends? Well, the only way to do it is through technology. So again, you can't just say, well, school is out, turn the computer off. We don't want to see it anymore the rest of the day, because then how do they connect with their friends? So build into that schedule sometime through technology with their friends, with the family. That would be a good time to connect with members of the family that you don't see physically. But also build into that schedule meal times. Don't let them go by as if they were not important. One of our colleagues and friends at Andrews University, Dr. Dwayne McBride, and in fact many others, but Dr. McBride has done some research that shows that families that sit together to dinner at least 5 times a week, among other things, they have noticed a lower incidence of teenage pregnancy, lower cases of alcohol and drug abuse among boys, of depression among boys, and of suicide among boys. And that's just some of the most important findings. So it's important that you, in your schedule, that you put your meal times and that you actually sit together to eat those meals, not just grab a sandwich, go to your room, I'll go to the table, you go to the whatever. No, just sit together. And during those times is when you consider technology-free times, sacred times to disconnect, so that as a family, you get to connect.
You know, if you're like most families, probably January, February, or even the first part of March, you were thinking, I wish I had more family time. I wish I wasn't so busy running here and there and doing so many errands, and I wish we had more time together as a family. Well, here it is. You know, so the real question is, how are you going to manage the time that you've been given? How are you going to use this opportunity of COVID-19 to perhaps one day, when you look back over this time, you will look back on it as a time of blessings that have emerged. I know there's so many negatives we can list, and we could list them here today, but is it possible that there are some good benefits that actually could come out of this time together as families?
One other thing we want you to remember is to encourage healthy habits. I have to tell you, we are tired of Zooming. We have been Zooming in and out of meetings since the end of March, And it's not just Zoom, it's Skype, and we have seen platforms we never even knew existed. I think our count is up to like 160 or so sessions that we have spoken at, that we have participated in, sermons, seminars, training program, all kinds of things. We're tired, but we're glad to do it. Don't misunderstand that. But what that also means is that we've been sitting too long. In fact, we noticed at the beginning of the pandemic, late in March, when we began to have all these Zoom meetings, it seems like we were growing like the lentils, from side to side. They're just getting bigger and bigger. In fact, we got to the point where I was wondering if the next time I had to go out, we had to enlarge our front door because I wasn't going to be able to go through. Although I have to tell you, a friend of mine told me once that it is harder to kidnap fat people. So I was just fat for my safety. But then after a while, I said, it's not just my safety. I need to also take care of my health. So I got serious about exercise, smaller portions, drinking lots of water. And I want to hear a big amen when I say this. To this day, I have lost 30 pounds. Amen?
Amen.
Many of you raise your hand, say
Amen.
hello. All right. I need support, encouragement. All right.
Amen.
It's for our good, but it's also for our kids' benefit because they have all that energy bottled up inside them. And if it doesn't go out in healthy ways, sometimes it manifests itself in wrong ways. It's not that they're bad kids, it's just that the energy drives them to do things that sometimes are not appropriate.
And let's be honest and say this is not only for our kids, this is for you too, moms and dads. We need to be healthy. And in fact, it's hard to tell our kids to get up off of that couch and to go outside when we stay in the lazy boy chair too. So we need to get up off of that couch too. And my husband and I, I have to say, before COVID, we spent most of our time on airplanes and in hotel rooms. And so
not on vacation, it was work.
It was work.
You understand.
So it was very common to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning and headed to Baltimore Airport to catch a plane. That was very common. Well, now, instead of being up at 3, headed to Baltimore to catch a plane, my husband, who is a morning person,
Amen.
is on the elliptical or the treadmill or the bike that we have in the basement of our home in those early morning hours. So he actually exercises for several hours.
So
every morning.
This is confession time. My wife mentioned that we have an elliptical and we have a recumbent bike and we have a treadmill, and they were really good for gathering clothes and piling up stuff on it. But once the pandemic began, we cleaned them all up, and now I think the machines are saying, please give us a break, you're overusing us. But it's been good for us to use them. The dust has been dusted off and we are again feeling better. Now Pam is more of a go outside type person.
That's right. So here is a difference that you may need to allow for in your own family. Claudio enjoys walking in the cool on our exercise equipment. I love the fresh air and the early morning sun. So I hit the pavement every morning and I walk for about an hour all around Laurel. We live in Laurel. So I walk all around the Laurel Hospital and all around the area, just praying for the people over there in that hospital who are working. There's a sign out there that says heroes work here or home of the brave. And so, I pray for them. And it's been so wonderful actually to create this routine of just my simple morning walk. This morning I saw a deer grazing, and I thought of the verse in the Bible that says, as the deer pants for water, so my soul longeth after thee. So parents and kids, we need to develop some type of exercise, whether it's outside for you. And in fact, what I've seen early in the morning as I'm walking, there is a man from our community who is walking every day with his 2 small children. Now I can tell from their faces, I'm not exactly sure they're happy to be walking with dad every morning, but they're there because I pass them on my walk. This dad walking, and the kids are young. The kids are maybe like 7 or 8 years old, boy and girl, that he walks with every morning. So there again, dad's not just telling them to go out to exercise, he's walking with them. So it's important for you as families to do what works for you, whether it's going outside in your backyard to maybe shoot some hoops or go for a walk in your neighborhood or exercise on some exercise equipment. Just do something as a family to get yourself moving.
If you say to your kids, let's go exercise, some of them might say, oh, I don't want to do that. But if you turn it into a game,
That's
it may
right.
become more interesting. We saw a video of a family who in their backyard created a obstacle course. And they created it very simply with like empty cardboard boxes with chairs. And so the dad would say to the kids, okay, so you have to jump over the chair, then you have to run around the box, and kind of made it a fun activity. And the kids had a blast. And of course, the parents had to do it too. They had to demonstrate it. So it became a fun activity, not just another chore that we have to do. We have to exercise.
And you're absolutely right. Activity versus exercise.
Right.
The kids don't realize they're getting exercise, but they actually are if you make it fun.
If you live in an apartment, that's also very important, because sometimes we think, well, yeah, you're lucky you have a backyard. Of course, our backyard is big enough to maybe for a dog to walk 3 paces or 3 paces around, and that's all. So we don't have a big backyard. So that's why she goes around. It's about 1.5 miles, walk around here. So no one said that you can't go out. What we are being told is if we go out, in fact, in the state of Maryland now, they're saying if you go out, make sure that you wear your mask, especially if you're going to be close to people. But there's no law that says that we can't go out. Somehow we got that idea in our minds that we have to stay at home. No, we can go out. We just have to be cautious, take the proper precautions, and take care of ourselves.
Okay, so let's move on to the next point. The next point, we talked about it a little bit, and it's to validate your children's disappointment, validate the loss. And you talked a little bit earlier about the grief that our kids were experiencing.
There's another point, and that's something that we forget to do, and it's to smile. It is very discouraging sometimes when we're not working, money's not coming in, but our kids feel that. By the way, I want to make a little parenthesis here. One of the recommendations we give you is to not watch the news continually. The more news you watch, the more discouraging you get, the more afraid you get. I'm not telling you to be ignorant. Watch some news if you have to, or read them, but just don't devote so much of your time daily to watch the news, because it becomes discouraging. I remember after September 11, I was one of those that was glued to the TV, but after a while, you see the planes crashing into the buildings again and again and again. It gets to be tiresome. It wears you down. Now everything is COVID-19 and more people dying and more people sick, and the COVID is spiking. It just makes you even more concerned. And if you're concerned, so are your kids. So limit the time that you spend watching the news, just to a few minutes, and then shut the TV off, turn it off, devote time to other things.
And that's especially true if you have younger children.
Yes.
They shouldn't be focusing on some of those images, but also family time. So this one is on smiling and having fun, family time. You know, you may be thinking, how can I do one more thing in my schedule? But we want to encourage all of you, if you don't already have it, and if you aren't doing it in that family schedule that we talked about earlier, set aside one night a week for family time. One night a week where you will disconnect from all technology in your home. Watching TV is not family time. Watching a movie is not family time, or playing a video game is not family time. A time when you can cut off the phones, the television, and just dedicate to family closeness. Play a board game. Maybe go out in your backyard, pitch a tent if you're into pathfinding. Ron was talking earlier about adventurers. So if you're into pathfinding, maybe you have a tent in your home, pitch a tent in your backyard. Go camping in your backyard as a family. Make it a fun night. Make s'mores over, if you have one of those fire pits in your backyard, make s'mores. Do something fun to reconnect as a family that kind of will make you disconnect from some of the challenges that are going on in the world, and definitely disconnect from the news.
Because if I do s'mores, then I'll have to spend 3 more hours on the elliptical. I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, honey, maybe you can roast carrots over the fire pit.
That might be
That's
better.
healthy for
That
you.
might be better.
You don't want to lose. You don't want to gain the 30 pounds that you
No.
worked very hard to
I've
lose.
already worked too hard on those.
Yes.
By the way, we recommend a game, a table game. It's a game that's been around for a long, long time, but I think it's the best board game ever invented. You can buy it. You can't find it on stores anymore. Don't go to Toys R Us because they closed anyways, but you can buy it online, and it's called the Ungame. Ungame, the Ungame. We like games that are fun, but also that are easy to play. You know, sometimes you play Monopoly and they have so many rules, so much money that you have to give to every player. And if a player lands here, you have to pay the rent, all that. You know, it's fun, but sometimes a little complicated. The Ungame only has one rule. I'll give you the rule here. The rule is, if it's your turn, you talk and everybody has to listen. You see, it's a game of communication. And it doesn't matter which way you go, because the goal is not to get to a certain place and be the first at that place. The goal is to spend time in conversation. So you determine how much time you want to do it, maybe a half hour or 45 minutes. So see if you can find that game. It's one of the best games you can ever invest in, the Ungame. The board game, by the way, not just the cards, but the actual board game.
And the next tip we want to give you is practice gratitude in your homes. It is so easy to make a list of what you can't do. We can't go shopping. We can't go to our favorite restaurant anymore. The store that I used to shop in closed because they went bankrupt. I can't go to church with my friends. I can't go to the Pathfinders Club, on and on and on. So why not develop an attitude of gratitude? Maybe take a jar, put it on your kitchen counter and say, this is our gratitude jar, and have a whole bunch of little cards beside it. And every morning, maybe as you're having breakfast, you could say, what are you thankful for today? And each member of the family can write something on the card and add it to the gratitude jar. And little by little, day after day, during this COVID time, you're going to see the gratitude jar grow with the number of cards. And if you get discouraged, or if you have a child who's complaining, go to that gratitude jar and say, let's remind ourselves, pull out the cards and read them together with your child as you remember some of the blessings that God has sent during this challenging time.
You know, one of those things that should give us gratitude is the fact that, well, we are alive, we're well. That's why we're on the Zoom session or in Facebook Live. But one of the things that sometimes happens is that we are so self-centered that we forget how good we have it. And one way to be selfless or not so self-centered is to think about others. So why don't you think about community projects? I bet you there's at least one neighbor in your area who may be older, who may be very worried or may be vulnerable and can't even go out, and their yard is beginning to look a little unkept. You can go and mow the lawn for them. That's a service project. Again, the law does not tell us that you can't do that. You put your mask on, you mow the lawn, sweep it up or blow the leaves or the grass off, and then go back home and you have done something to help them. Maybe you can help them by taking the trash out. And when I say you, I mean you and your children.
That's right.
Research shows that when children and parents do service-oriented projects together, they tend to stay in church longer than if you just simply send them to do it. So together, look for ways that you can serve people in need, because that helps you and them.
And the last tip we want to share with you before we go to the question and answer period is to make sure one of the most important things you can put in your schedule every day is family worship time. Make sure that you are faithful to that. Now, many parents say, we've never had family worship. We don't know how to do it, or it doesn't work for us. Sometimes, as we discuss this further with parents, we realize that they're making it too hard. Moms and dads, family worship should not be so hard. First of all, it should be age appropriate. If you're trying to spend a half hour reading the book of Revelation to your 3-year-old child, it's no wonder they don't look forward to family worship every day. It should be short, appropriate to the age of that child. If you have a 3-year-old, maybe family worship is only like 10 minutes a day. And maybe that family worship is making a card for a neighbor, coloring a card for a neighbor, and then having prayer together for that neighbor before you run and knock on the door and then step back the appropriate distance and wait for them to open that door and find the card that you have left on the doorstep for them. Those are family worship. Family worship could be baking cookies for a nurse, someone that you know who's working hard, serving the community, working as a nurse, baking cookies and leaving it. Sometimes we make family worship too hard and we wonder why it's not fun. Simple acts of kindness that you do with your child can be family worship. Just make sure it's every day and at the same time every day.
And by the way, one way to include your children is to actually let them be the ones to lead, to plan their own worship. It may not look the way you would do it, but if they do it, they are actually participating actively in the act of worship. In the schedule, at the beginning, we talked about having a schedule. So put that in your daily schedule, family worship. It only takes about 20 days to develop a new habit. So if you're not in the habit of doing it, follow that schedule every day. Put it on your calendar, put it on your phone with an alarm to remind you of it. Although it's better if you plan it properly instead of just at the last minute say, oh, it's family worship, let's read something quickly and get it over with. Plan it, or give the responsibility to every member of the family to plan a different family worship. And again, it may not look the way that we are used to or the way that we would like it to be, but as long as they're doing it and participating in it, that's really the ultimate goal.
And talk about it all throughout the day. You know, if you have a 3-year-old, constantly remind them, oh, I can't wait till family worship tonight. We're going to do something so fun. Aren't you excited? Because your enthusiasm will rub off on the kids instead of, oh, it's family worship time again. I dread it because I know the kids are going to hate it. You know what? They will if that's your attitude.
So those are the basic principles that we wanted to share with you this afternoon. But as we promised Pastor Hazel and Ron, we wanted to leave some time to perhaps answer some questions that you may have. So again, Pastor Hazel and Ron, thank you for inviting us, and we give you back the time. So if there are any questions, we're here to try to answer them.
Thank you. So many good things to integrate into our lives. I don't know how many of us are going to be Googling the Ungame when they're done, but certainly I will be. Sounds great to start that conversation, and so many good ideas for family worship and so many things. So thank you. We do have some prepared questions, and then we want to open it up to whatever questions you might have in either the chat or on Facebook Live. So Pastor Hazel will be helping with some of those if she's got some. And I'll start things off. Thank you for the opportunity. One thing I was thinking about is for the parents fortunate enough to be able to work from home. Some, don't have jobs or they have to go in. But if they are, particularly for little ones, how do you separate how do you create a space where there's not interruptions frequently so that it becomes hard for you to work, but how do you, have that balance to know that they're loved and paid attention to at the same time?
Lock yourself in the bathroom.
you know, that is indeed a challenge, and we're all navigating these waters that we're not used to. But I would suggest, as far as possible, if each family member could kind of have their designated place in the home. Now, the younger the child, the more you're going to have to oversee what they're doing. Maybe you're going to have to help them log in to school. You're going to have to help them log in and do their classwork. So there again, the younger they are, the more guidance that may help. You may have to do for them. If they're older, they can be separated for a while. But for now, if you know, I'm a mom working from home and I have a first grader or a kindergartner, they may be very close. They may be very close by me, and I may have to bring a chair or something actually into my space.
If it is possible, if it is a husband-wife home, if it is possible to work it out so that they can take turns, so to speak, that maybe work will allow them to, you know, say dad to work in the morning and mom to work in the afternoon and take turns. If it's possible to do it, that would be the ideal. But we recognize there are also single parents who don't have that option. And so, as Pam said, you may have to maybe even work with your older kids to help with the younger kids while you do some of the office work, so to speak. But then in turn, allow the older kids to have some of their free time as you spend time with the little ones.
And I also want to tell parents, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to your principal or to your school district and ask for the support and help you need. Because in the beginning, I was hearing from so many parents, their technology wasn't working. They didn't have the internet, or they didn't have the technology skills to actually help their child do this. But yet help was available, and help is available. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for exactly what it is that you need, because what do they say? If we don't ask, we may not receive.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I'm going to jump in real quickly. What you just said was key, because we don't know the struggles until you let us know. And growing up, I heard something that someone once said, that sometimes we see a family and we think that it's a perfect unit happening over there. And we say, man, I wish I was like the Jones, right? Which we always say, I wish our family was like the Jones. But the truth is, once I heard someone say that, be careful with that desire, because even the grass is not always greener on the other side, because we're not familiar with the maintenance plan, right?
That's right.
And so we have to understand that we're here to help people, but unless we know the struggle, it's very difficult. As a matter of fact, I was just speaking with someone earlier today who was telling me about a family who actually has special needs children. And so we recognize how much more difficult it is in that situation when it comes to school. And so we do understand that parents are struggling very deeply right now. And I was just reading an article that mentioned some professionals in the DMV area, and they were sharing their stories. And literally, they were both were working from home and helping with the children with school, and it became overwhelming. And so they made a decision. They physically are moving to, I believe it was Ohio, because they have a set of grandparents there that can actually help. And so we understand that different families will have to do different things right now. And so, but thank you for saying that, because we do clearly understand that it's hard to help if we don't exactly know what's going on.
That's right. And even if perhaps our system doesn't have the help available, we can certainly be a resource to help them find who does until that situation is remedied, or we do our very best in those situations. Yeah. So there again, moms, dads, speak up. Just like Pastor Hazel said, they're here to help you.
You know, I was thinking, because this is a very stressful time, I understand cross-stitching or needlework is relaxing. I'm wondering if Margie is going to show us what she's doing there. I see her on the screen, and I'm interested. I'm curious what it is that she's doing back there. Anyways, I'm just kidding there. Oh, look at that. That looks nice.
Whatever it takes to get it to, right?
Look at that.
Doing
peacock.
beautiful embroidery, it looks like, or needlework, some type of needlework. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, you will not be able to see this, but we're looking at someone on our Zoom
Yeah,
screen
shoot,
who's
on
doing
Facebook, they can see the whole thing.
beautiful, beautiful needlework.
Well, thank you, Margie, for showing us. And you look so relaxed there.
Thank you. It's just my way to keep awake when I'm in meetings now.
We understand.
Okay, I have another question. This is mainly older children focused. So what if the child, the teenager, just says they want to hang out with friends during the pandemic? Very general question, but how do you address that with someone older in the family?
Yeah, well, there again, it's important for parents to understand that for teenagers, that peer group is so much, becomes such an important part of their life. And, you know, we talked about that in our parenting book, the change that we see during puberty of the importance of that peer group. And that's been taken away from teenagers. So one of the most important things parents can do, take the time to really listen and talk to them. Don't say, well, it is what it is, or, you know, or you just have to deal with it. You can't go see your friends, you know, I don't want to hear you gripe anymore, but tell me about it. You know, I want to understand, tell me your frustration, and then talk about the parameters that we are given during this time. And with those parameters, is there anything that you can do to help facilitate this loss, you know, that they're feeling? Maybe there's one special friend that they really want to see. Is there something you can do? Maybe call the other family and go meet in a park and put your chairs 6 feet apart, but allow those kids to maybe reconnect and have conversations. So there are some things I think that we can still do and be safe doing it.
Let's see. I already asked that. Let's see. How about, you touched upon it a little bit during your talk. So how do you mitigate the complaining sometimes when children are tasked with helping around the house? And this can be, I guess, a pre-COVID question of sorts too. But now that we're around so much, you know, we have let's see, an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and sometimes there's, you know, a little grumbling. So do you have any advice in regards to that?
If all you have is a little grumbling, you're doing really well.
That's right. Well, there again, explaining to children, we're family. And what does that mean? It means we're part of a team. And it means we work together to do things. So the child understands, and maybe this is something that you can, you know, visual things are very good for children. So having a task or a chore sheet that actually has mom and dad on it too, or if it's a single parent home, has that parent on it too, so that the child sees, I'm not just having to go sweep the floor or vacuum the carpet, you know, wow, look at mom's list, or look at dad's list, or hey, even my baby brother, you know, even my 2-year-old brother has beside his name, pick up your toys and put them in the toy box. So if the child sees that every member of the family is part of the same team, and every member of the family has responsibilities, and this is my responsibility, I think it's easier. And there again, a visual chart. It's so important for kids to see it. Put it on the refrigerator, you know, beside your schedule. So you have your schedule, and on your family schedule, it may just say chore time, but have a separate chore chart where it lists every member of the family and really lists out those chores.
And they should be, again, age appropriate.
Yes.
You can't just say, well, we're going to treat all the kids the same here. No, because the 2-year-old can't do the same thing as the 8-year-old or the 15-year-old. So make sure that the responsibilities and the chores are age appropriate. In the same way, and this is one that we practiced in our home when our daughters were still at home and they were little. It has to do with the whole issue of the monthly allowance. Thank you. So we decided from the time they were little that we would give them a monthly allowance, but that it would be based on their age. And so we said, for every year of your life, we will give you $1. So if you're 3 years old, you get $3 a month. When our daughter got to be 20, we said, we're done. We're not going to give you any more than that. But really, because they are 5 years apart, one was getting $5 and the other one was getting $10. Well, of course, because the older one deserved that much more and needed that much more. Fortunately, they never complained. They understood. We explained that. Of course, we said to the 5-year-old, when you get to be 10, you will get 10 as well. So the responsibilities as well as the rewards should be appropriate to the age of the child. You can't say we treat all our children the same, because that would be unfair.
But here's the reason that we chose to do the allowance, and some parents may not, but one reason that we chose to do it was because we wanted to teach them some financial principles. So you can actually teach very, very young children to have a budget sheet. You can create a budget. You know, sometimes we wait till they're 18, 19 years old in college and they rack up the credit card debt, and we don't understand why. We should have been teaching that 3-year-old to have a budget sheet, and there may only be 3 things on the budget sheet, you know, to spend, to save, and for Jesus. And this is where tithing, the principle of tithing, comes in. So that's the reason, one of the reasons that we made the decision, because we wanted to teach our children not only the value of hard work, but we wanted to teach them how to manage money. And that's one way you can do both.
That's thank you so much for sharing that. So we have a single mom who has a deep question. So when COVID started, she has a 3-year-old daughter, and it was fun times at the beginning, right? Because she didn't have to go to daycare. She was home with mommy, and everybody was excited, mommy and 3-year-old daughter. The problem now is that because mom's working from home and she's a single mom, the issue is that she's fully engaged in work and doesn't have enough time to play with her child. Well, the distressing part came in when she overheard her 3-year-old, 3 years old, right? She overheard her 3-year-old child ask, "Why isn't mommy playing with me?" And so what does she respond to this daughter is the question. How do you respond to a 3-year-old who doesn't really understand everything that's happening? And what advice can we give this mother?
You know, and that indeed is a challenge, especially it's a challenge for all parents, but for single parents who are there alone with a very young child. And just this morning, we did a presentation virtually to Manila, Philippines, where we talked to single parents. And we just finished a brand new book for single moms and for single dads, which should be out in the next month or so. But I would encourage that single mom, what we talked about this morning is to take advantage of some support systems and support groups that may be available, that sometimes there again, we talked about asking for help and letting others know what you need. Maybe there is another family member that could help this single mom, you know, and I don't know the specific situations. Maybe she's already explored that and there's not. But if she hasn't, I would encourage her to explore some other support systems that may be available, other family members that may be able to come stay with her for a while and to, you know, to engage and play. Maybe there's an older aunt or maybe there's a grandmother and they're in a situation where it's safe for that person to come. Worst case scenario, there is no one, and that would be where the schedule comes in, where the child may have to play at mom's feet for for many hours during the day while she's doing work virtually for her office. But maybe she can take times like lunch times or other breaks during the day, or specifically build in that one-on-one time with her child. So when work is finished and the computer is off, that it is tempting to focus on the laundry or to focus on other things around the house that may need to be done. But if that mom could take the time to say, okay, I'm going to focus 1 hour. I know the laundry basket is full of laundry. I know the bathroom needs cleaning, but for the next hour, I'm not going to do anything but play with my child.
When I was in my graduate program in psychology, one of my professors used to tell us positive attention is better than negative attention, but negative attention is better than no attention at all. And often when children get no positive attention, they misbehave. Obviously, then they receive negative attention from their parents. The parents get upset with them, they punish them, they yell at them, or whatever they do. But at least they're getting attention. It's negative, but at least they're getting attention. So it's always good to provide your children with positive attention. So as Pam was saying, it may be better to leave the laundry for a little later after the child goes to bed, or maybe the house is not spotless clean as you would like it to be, but it's better to spend as much quality time with your child instead of just trying to keep the house clean. In that schedule, provide time for positive attention with your child. And yes, you may have to speak with your employer and say, this is my situation. There is no daycare that we can take her to now. So will you allow me at least a 15-minute break every hour or something like that to just give my child that undivided attention? I will complete my job, even if I have to work longer hours or an extra hour at the end of the day, but give me that time throughout the day to spend with my child. I think the child would appreciate it, and of course, it would benefit both.
Thank you. We're getting towards our end of our time. We do have one more question that was submitted, and we want to make sure we get to that, although I do see some blip up as soon as I'm talking, but we want to make sure we cover the weighty questions. Here is one. How would you help a single mom with a 5-year-old currently unemployed, but struggling to find work, and at the same time has to help her child with virtual learning during the fall? So this is a tough situation for this family. Single mom looking for employment and trying to help the child.
Well, certainly if that mom is unemployed, I'm going to read between the lines that there also are probably financial challenges. And that is not unique for many single parents. But there again, sometimes it's a matter of taking advantage of resources that are available that we may not even be aware of. So researching some available options, certainly finding, talking to your church family to offer that support, to offer that prayer. Having a prayer partner is so important, and just being vulnerable about what exactly do you need. Do you need food on the table while you're searching for a job? Can I pray for a job? What are your skills? You know, what are your specific skills? Do you need help writing a CV to distribute? Certain things like that are things that the church family can actually be supportive and perhaps help the single mom do.
Looking for a mission project or a service project to do, that would be an excellent one to see what I can do or what we can do to help a single parent in a situation like that. Again, to enable them, to help them to find or to position themselves so that they can find a job. But it may also be, again, providing maybe temporary childcare while they go for an interview or something like that. So the church family can actually rally around the single parents to provide that kind of support. That's in fact one of the best things that the church can do for their own members, those who are in special need.
Well, we wanted to close questions right now. There were 2 more that came in, so I'm going to forward them to the consuegras. and try to get answers for those folks. We wanted to thank the Consuegras for giving so much of their time and helpful advice, Christian-based advice. We know it's been time well spent, and we wanted to thank you for your time from the bottom of everyone's heart here. And I wanted to give Pastor Hazel a chance to make closing remarks herself and pray to close out our session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Doctors Consuegra. This has been extremely helpful, I believe, to our parents. There's no easy task in parenting, and with COVID thrown into the mix makes it a little bit more difficult. And we see, unfortunately, statistics are showing already the challenges that we're having in the homes sadly with families that are not used to spending so much time together. And so you hit on a key point, which we reminded our families of Sligo today, that we will continue to have storms, but with Jesus as our anchor, then he'll calm our storms in life. And if he doesn't immediately calm the storms in our lives, he'll find a way to calm our hearts and bring a solution to our situations. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because the children are not the future, but there are now. So we want to make sure that we try to help our families stay as healthy as possible, especially during these mega storms such as we're facing worldwide right now. And so we thank you for joining us today. May God continue to bless your ministry. We're super excited about the book you mentioned, especially for the single parenting, because even as Christians, we have to go through unfortunate situations, and how wonderful that you are working on these resources to just bless our families. Thank you so much.
And Pastor Hazel, if I could just make one more comment. We have a YouTube channel. It's the name of the channel is Claudio and Pamela Consuegra. And we did a program this morning on single parenting. And there are other resources there, other videos, many on parenting that your folks may like to go and take advantage of.
Of course. You have your website, the name of your website again on at the NAD?
NADfamily.org. So NAD for North American Division Family, NADfamily.org. And through there, you'll also have access to other resources by topic. So if you want to look at marriage or sexuality or, parenting, those topics are there with additional suggested resources. And one good place to also get our resources is adventsource.org, which is the distribution house for all resources for the North American Division. So that's adventsource.org.
And the name of your YouTube channel again?
Just our name, Claudio and Pamela Consuegra.
Fantastic. May God continue to bless your ministry. And if you allow us, we'd love to pray for your ministry today. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the blessing of having the Consuegras with us today. We just pray that you would continue to bless their ministry wherever you guide them. Help them to continue to use their talents and gifts and wisdom that you've granted them to help our families to stay strong. We know that the times are challenging, but as they've reminded us today, how important it is to have our family worships so that we can start training the children young that no matter what we have to face in life, that we're secure when we're with you, because we know that you'll guide and protect us always. Lord, bless each one of our families here. And we just pray that you would bless them. You know each home, each situation. You know what's deep in their hearts and what they need. And we just pray above everything that you would grant them the wisdom that they need to continue parenting and just be with all of us. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 God bless you. And we have some people saying thank you so much. Shout out to y'all. And so shout out to you.
Thank you so much. God blessings to all of you.
Thank you to all the attendees too.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Pastor Hazel.
Hello.